One thing about Sylveon is that it's always going to do huge damage on the special side. Unless you're feeling a little spicy, which, I always am. Today, I'm going to make Sylveon a physical sweeper with its hilariously bad base 65 attack. So here's how. We can first either scout the opponent with Protect, or set up with Curse to boost our attack and defense by one stage. Now look, Sylveon has the ability Pixelate, which turns all normal moves into the fairy type, and are boosted by 20%. Plus, since this set's only running 3 moves, and we've already clicked 2 of them, we can now unleash Last Resort. This is a 140 power physical normal move that can only be used if every other move has already been clicked, and it gets the stab boost now being fairy type, plus the extra 20% from Pixelate. We can tank hits with our solid natural base 130 special defense, and when we get low, we pop a citrus berry for some longevity. Overall, nobody expects Sylveon ever to be a physical attacker, but today it's time to surprise some people and melt them with Last Resort. So while everybody's worried about getting, hyper voiced by a big special attack Sylveon, what they should be worried about is getting physically whipped by some crazy skin ribbons, and Last Resort is crazy. You already know that we like to have fun with some weird nonsense over here, and if that sounds like a fun time to you and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do me a favor and click that button. And with that, let's jump into the match. Alright, so as my opponent decides to lead off straight up with the Goodra, this thing looks depressed, but it's a problem. Hisuian Goodra, very defensive. It's got a decently bad typing for what I try to get going here. So as I lead off with its Hisuian sister, we're like, hey, some fellas from the past out here. I'm gonna set up some Stealth Rock. I can hit decently hard, with an Earthquake, but I want to prioritize getting those rocks up. It turns out they go for a knockoff, which is rude, because now that gets rid of my Custat Berry. While they do break the Sturdy anyway, I'm probably not gonna be able to get that off, but it still sucks to just see your lunch just on the floor. So, at this point, I don't know exactly what this thing wants to do in terms of what its move pool is working with, so I decided to switch into Swampert. I can threaten that with a harder hitting Earthquake, and I really just need some chip on the thing. But Hisuian Goodra, you just never know, what the hell to expect. So it turns out I come in, I get smacked in the face by a tail. I mean, its tail is inside of the shell. I don't know how it works that out, but it does in fact now switch me out into a random teammate, and that brings in Porygon 2, which is just about the opposite guy I want to come in here. Because first of all, I download a physical attack, which doesn't help me at all, but then I can't touch it. This Porygon's meant to charge beam and try attack, and neither of those are going to be great. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to swap again. I figure they likely just go for a knockoff here. If I'm looking at a Porygon 2, you better believe that knockoff button is staring at me like the Green Goblin has. So I'm like, I'm going to switch right back into the Avalugg, and they do go for the knockoff. And at this point, I'm like, no more playing games. I'm going to go for an Earthquake. I really just need some damage on this thing. I don't think it's going to have any reliable healing. Earthquake's going to do huge damage. I'm like, yep, I should have just done that from the start. And as they do Dragon Tail me out, that's fine. Considering they don't have any hazards up, the mixing things up with the Dragon Tail isn't really that bad. It does bring back in the one thing I did not want to come in, of course. That's generally just how it works. Now I feel like I have to get this thing out of here, but then I'm like, are they just going to Dragon Tail again? Moral of the story, I'm stuck in a Dragon Tail loop of hell versus this depressed snail, and I need to try to get something going. So Avalugg's kind of my most expendable fella. As I bring this thing in, turns out, boom, they just straight up turn into a cannon, flash the hell out of me, and that does kill me. So the stab flash cannon is going to be enough to knock out the Avalugg. But then I'm like, all right, this is fine. At least that's going to allow me some momentum, because since I already got some chip on it with the Earthquake, or at least big damage, I can now finish it off with a Swampert Quake. So I'm like, Jesus, this thing's a problem. I'm also like, should I bulk up? No, I'm going to totally get I'm going to get Dragon Tailed, and then I'm going to turn my switch off. So instead, I pull out the Earthquake. That is going to be one dead gooey bastard, and that's pretty good. Now that's going to open up the game for Sylveon, because only having fairy coverage, looking at that thing was like, I mean, I could still start to rack up decent damage if I get a bunch of curses up, but with that thing gone, that's going to make my life a whole lot easier, at least hopefully, with the Sylveon in the back. So at this point, now they have the revenge switch. They can go into whatever they want. Turns out it's going to be the Minecraft guy, and all my homies hate Garganacl. This thing is so annoying, but it comes in. I'm thinking this is fine. I have coverage on, both of my stabs, but surely this is going to bring out a Terra. And that's exactly what they're going to do. Garganacl generally going to be the fella that Terras. They do go for the Terra flying, probably just trying to avoid an Earthquake. But knowing that they're likely just going to hit a defensive little crystallization, I go for the knockoff. It's going to get rid of this thing's leftovers, make it a little easier to deal with in the long run, and also get a little bit of chip there. So it turns out they do click Curse, and that's not great. I mean, in general, cursing Garganacl, very scary. I know I'm in danger of being Salt Cured. My physical attacks aren't going to do a damn thing, but at least considering it went for that Terra flying, it's not the end of the world. I do have I got myself a rubber ducky. I'm thinking Porygon 2 has a decent position here. If it's going to continue to curse, I can start to get some pretty decent damage with a Charge Beam, and I can kind of take a Body Press depending. So I'm going to bring in the Porygon 2 here, and I figure might as well get the thing going. The main reason is because I come in immediately getting a special attack boost. They do go for the recover, so you know Garganacl just doing the most annoying Garganacl bullshit, and it's fine. It's back at full HP, but now I'm just going to go for the Charge Beam and see if I can at least connect on the damn thing. I've been screwed over by Charge Beam many times, but this one connects and gives me that 70% chance for the special attack boost. And as they go for the Salt Cure, that is... Look, Salt Cure kind of sucks. Nobody wants a Salty Duck, and at this point, I'm like, okay, I can at least recover off this damage, but the continual chip every turn is going to make my life pretty annoying. So I decided, look, they have a Mudsdale on their squad, and if I'm them, I'm probably switching a Mudsdale in here on a Charge Beam and then being able to Body Press. So I expect that. I'm going to go for the Tri Attack instead. Kind of covers for if they do want to stay in. I get really decent damage. I'm now at +2 special attack. They do bring in the Mudsdale, so the Mustard Dale comes in. Gets Tri Attacked, does a whole bunch of damage, more than they were expecting, and I'm just continually, even with the Garganacl gone, the Salt Cure is still just annoying as hell. Somebody nerf Salt Cure, for Christ's sake. But I can actually outspeed here, which is funny, because I'm straight up built to be slow. I'm a Trick Room attacker, but I outspeed, which is sweet, because now I can finish off the Mudsdale, and that's another big kind of defensive wall out of the way. So I continue to get hurt by Salt Cure, but now I'm like, you know what, Porygon 2 kind of schmoovin'. We're gonna see what we can do with the guy. But as the Danger Noodle comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the thing, and it's a problem. So Chin Pao with its crazy ass swords for teeth is gonna destroy me. There's nothing I can do here. I didn't get up a Trick Room, so I'm kind of in a bad spot in terms of getting Sacred Sworded to death. So down goes the Porygon, which is fine, because now as I'm looking at it, this feels like a pretty good opportunity to bring in the Skin Ribbons, baby. We're gonna go straight up Scribbins out here, and I'm thinking they can get some pretty decent chip, you know, with an Icicle Crash, but I have the help of a potential Terra, plus I'm gonna go for a Curse here. Also, this thing, it knows it doesn't grab a kill here, so I'm like, maybe they swap out. Turns out they stay in, and they end up missing an Icicle Crash, which is extremely clutch. I was really kind of banking on them swapping there, but hey, this is even better. Now I get myself a free Curse. And first of all, they're probably like, the hell did that Sylveon just, did that thing just click Curse? I don't know, they don't know what the hell's going on here, but they're about to find out. So now, I can go for a Protect. That's just gonna scout what they're gonna go for. I imagine they continue to click the Icicle Crash. You could also argue running Protect is not worth it here, as they instead get up a free Swords Dance. So that's unfortunate. I really should have not done that. But at this point, I'm like, okay, well, they got a Swords Dance. Surely they're now gonna go for an Icicle Crash. They have +1 on me, considering I have a Curse. But now feels like a good a time as any to bust out the defensive Terra here. I need to be able to take this Icicle Crash well, and the Swords Dance Danger Noodle was scarier than I imagined here. So they do go for the Icicle Crash, and I'm not gonna lie, my base 65 defensive ass did not enjoy that. Also because it's Life Orb and the scariest like physical sweeper ever, but that's gonna at least put me in Citrus Berry range, so I'm looking pretty healthy. And then the kicker is that now your ass gets last resorted, baby. I turn into a star, smack the hell out of it, that's gonna be a dead Chien Pao. So that's really good, because I obviously was gonna die to a Sacred Sword after that, but Chien Pao gone, and that's kind of one of the bigger threats out of the way. Now we get to see how far we can go with the Sylveon in its game time, baby. So one bad thing about a Terra Steel is that puts me in danger of an Earth Power from this freaking apple. But check it out. We are, in fact, base 130 special defense. We are naturally bulky as hell on that side. We're able to live it. And then the nice little Last Resort comes in, pixelated as hell. That's going to be a dead Hydrapple. So that's actually really clutch. Being able to grab a kill there on the physical side is super nice. And now what's even better is that, look, Snorlax comes in. He's straight up looking down at me like I'm some type of dessert. But I do outspeed this thing, which Sylveon is not built to do even after a Curse. And a Last Resort also kills the Snorlax, which is hilarious. This thing is never supposed to outspeed stuff, but that's pretty damn funny. So now their final Mon is going to be the Garganacl. And also, what's hilarious, in fact, about this is that I outspeed you as well. And a Last Resort would be able to knock it out, but they dip out. They are going to run, and the physical Skin Ribbons has struck fear into the opponent's heart, and that is exactly what we're here to do, and I think that's hilarious. So with that, that's gonna bring us now into game number 2. And look, if you've stuck around this far into the video, you gotta hit the like button for me. It takes a second, it helps out the channel. And hey, I'm having a fun time making random stuff, and hopefully you guys are enjoying as well. So the like button tells me you do, and with that, let's jump into the next game. So this time, my opponent, of course, leads off with the Gliscor. But luckily for me, this time, I'm not feeling so bad about it, because I've got this thing's natural predator, the Ice type. Pretend like I'm David Attenborough describing a nature documentary. So it turns out they go for the turn 1 protect, which is great because I expect that. I just click the stealth rock. I'm here to not heck around. And also, while they do get their toxic, it's going to be just the most annoying Gliscor. All my homies hate big meaty claws over here, but as I can go ahead and threaten this thing with a Mountain Gale, you better believe I'm clicking it. And while they can just go ahead and swap here, Mountain Gale hurts. It's going to do some damage to stuff. Now, as I was expecting a hard switch. Turns out they go for the U-turn, which is annoying because that breaks my Sturdy. And this whole thing's deal is to be able to get down to Sturdy, activate a Custat Berry, which allows priority, and then do more damage than you thought Flat Stanley was going to do. So they end up swapping into Primarina, and while that does a decent amount of chip, I also have a pretty good answer to Primarina in general. Look, I've been messing around. I've been using Tentacruel for a while. This is one of my favorite things to pop on a team. Honestly, it does so well, and it also does really good at just completely walling Primarina. So as I bring it in, sadly, I am met with a flip turn, which is good on their end because now they can bring in, a decent answer and also create some good momentum. And it turns out to be the Iron Boulder. So 2 notes about Iron Boulder. First of all, Pioneers used to drive these babies for miles. Number 2, we do not see a booster energy come through. So I don't know exactly what item this thing's working with, but I'm frightened. So I'm like, well, I kind of need Tentacruel as a good check to that Primarina. So as I swap into Swampert, I'm a pretty physically bulky fella. I take an Earthquake nicely, tells me it's more than likely not going to be choice banded. And after some leftovers, we're having ourselves a nice little morning on the beach here. So I'm thinking I probably just go for a knockoff here. Not exactly sure what they want to do, but I figure they do probably swap. And a knockoff is going to cover for getting rid of someone's item. Someone's going to come in being like, boy, is it nice to have this item, and then boom, bitch, get that out of there on the ground. Now, it turns out to be the Toadscruel, and this little crazy, creepy bastard is definitely an annoying little fella. But here's the thing. Judging by how the playstyles have gone so far with lots of switching, I'm going to try to see if I can't bait an over-prediction here. I'm thinking they might expect me to swap. Like, why would I stay in here? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay in, and then I get Giga Drained and just destroyed by that. So, that sometimes you win them and sometimes you lose them. So the Giga Drain sucks because it also, gets a bunch of health back. And I really should have gone into my own Tentacruel there. The problem is it gets a stab ground Earth Power. And while I am Assault Vest, I can't hit it that hard in return. So I'm like, you know what? It feels like a pretty decent time to just go right into the Sylveon here. No one's going to know what the hell this Sylveon is going to do. And also, as they go for a Rapid Spin, that gives me kind of just a free turn to set up a curse. And if there's one thing in this world Sylveon enjoys, it's a free curse. So we're over here just screaming profanities. I get myself my +1 attack and defense. And while they do get rid of my Stealth Rock, it seems like a decent trade-off. So at this point, I'm like, I could go ahead and set up another one. Why not? Why shouldn't I have another one? I'm feeling like the curse is the ring in the Lord of the Rings. I'm like, why couldn't it be mine? I'm going to go for another curse here. They are going to end up swapping into Gliscor. They see, obviously, I'm a physical Sylveon. And the one thing about this Sylveon is it definitely needs all the help it can get. I get to +2 attack. I double my attack and defense, which now puts me in a position where I'm kind of a threat over here. And also, I don't know what this Gliscor wants to do. So I'm going to go for the Protect. And that's kind of one of the good parts about having Protect. I can scout out a little bit, and the Protect reveals the Toxic. So that Toxic on that turn is, A, going to tell me that this Gliscor is, in fact, the asshole I thought it was. It's going to be just a Toxic Protect U-turn, just completely stalling, annoying guy. But it now is going to present me with the opportunity to go for the Terra Steel. Knowing that they want to click the Toxic. First of all, it's going to give me the ability to not, be slowly whittled down by that. But it's also going to put me in a spot where now I'm just weak to ground. But I'm like, that's fine. It feels like a pretty good trade-off. They do go for the Toxic again. No longer affects me because I am Steel. And then I'm going to fire off a Last Resort. Now, I know it's going to be a 2-hit KO because this thing is clearly revealed to be just defensive. And it takes a bunch from it, but then I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I'm going to go for another one. But they Protect. For what feels, most of the time, Gliscor is just click Protect, man. It feels like no reason at all because even after this Toxic heal, it's not going to be in a spot where it can live the next one. But what it does do is just stalls out my Last Resort PP. And I'm like, Jesus. Oh, well, okay. I'm going to go for another one. And look at this. They go for the double Protect. For seemingly no reason at all, they go for the double Protect. I could have gotten like 2 free curses at this point. And I'm feeling like, why didn't I should have gone for a curse. I just didn't want to take unnecessary Earthquake damage, but I should have continued to curse. I'm just excited that I've gotten 2 of them up at this point, and I'm just spamming Last Resort here. So I'm still at a point where I can end up grabbing the kill here on the Gliscor, but after it grabs most of its health back, it's like, I'm going to come back and save that asshole for later, which is sweet for them. So as I go for another Last Resort, in comes Primarina, and they are met with me because I'm a star, baby. I go ahead and just bop it. That's going to take care of Primarina. And with Sylveon just stacking up some KOs here. So now we put ourselves in an interesting spot though, because the Steel Terra, while it helps me against the Toxic, it does not help versus things like this. In comes the Iron Boulder, goes for the close combat, and look at this. After +2 defense, we actually do not take very much at all from that, which is sick as hell because that also gives me a Citrus Berry, and now we're looking very healthy. And guess what? We got cocked and loaded, baby. We got a Last Resort ready to come and destroy the thing. So that is, especially after the close combat drop, that's going to knock out the Iron Boulder, spin his head around. And this Sylveon feels like it's doing far better than I even thought it was going to. So here's the thing though, they now have Cinderace, and this Steel Terra is in fact biting me in the ass because look at it, I'm like, well, I should maybe be able to live an attack, judging by how much that close combat did. They go for the Pyro Ball, and sadly it's gonna knock me out. So while we do stir up a whole bunch of stuff, poke some holes in the team, the Pyro Ball is gonna be enough, and that's wildly unfortunate. I'm like, is this thing choiced or something? That hurt. And most of all, it hurt Sylveon's ego, because I'm like, damn it, thing was fun. But, you know, we got some good damage done to big threats, and I'm like, this game is we still got ourselves a match here. Now I'm gonna go right into the Tentacruel, because I'm like, you know, Tentacruel is pretty nice here, and I know it can't really touch me. Turns out they do go for a U-turn, so obviously not choiced. Pyro Ball just does damage, and in comes Toedscruel. So we're kind of met by, this is like my weird freaky cousin at the barbecue. I go for the Surf, and it does nothing to the thing. I'm like, Jesus, we're both just a bunch of bulky ass jellyfish. But I'm like, you know what? Why? I'm just gonna stay in, go for another Sludge Wave. It cannot Giga Drain. If it Giga Drains, gonna be met with some Liquid Ooze. But as it has the big, super effective stab with Earth Power, it doesn't do much because I'm Assault Vest. But then I'm like, you know what? I need to try to get something going. The bad thing about this matchup is that we don't do well against things like Gliscor coming back in. So I'm like, you know what? While this thing is just continuing to just go for Earth Power, who doesn't care about that is my boy Porygon. I bring this thing in. Sadly, we get an attack boost, which sucks, but I can come in, take Earth Powers all day long as there's no Spadef drops. And luckily, it doesn't happen. So I'm like, you know, I cannot Charge Beam, of course, but what I can do is try Attack. And they're probably living in fear of an Ice Beam, but I guess they're not living in that much fear because they just straight up swap into Gliscor on what felt like an obvious Ice Beam incoming, which I don't even have. But as I go for the Try Attack, not quite going to be enough to knock out the Gliscor, which is annoying. And I feel like they probably go into this thinking that they can just get up a Toxic. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't even care about being Toxic because I can actually, after a Trick Room, start to do some crazy stuff with the Porygon. So as they go for Protect, one thing is like, I'm not getting tricked by your Protecting then this time, baby. I'm going to go for the Trick Room, which is sick because even after this Toxic Heal, now it's in range to where I can outspeed and knock it out with a Tri Attack. And all of a sudden, this Duck is more of an offensive threat than anybody expects. So Tri Attack's going to take care of the Gliscor. Absolutely the best sight to see that thing faint. And now we still have the Trick Room on our side. So in comes Cinderace. Now the bad thing is I do not have any special attack boost. So I'm like, you know, maybe I could try to get something going with that. Go for a Charge Beam. It does miss, which is cool. And then as they click the high jump kick, with that stab, it is going to kill me. So I'm like, well, so much for the Porygon 2 doing stuff. Not quite going to happen there. This Cinderace is just doing damage, dude. This thing is a damn threat. And also, it's bad news for me because I don't have a whole lot to deal with it other than like Choice Scarf Samurott. It's starting to feel like Choice Scarf Samurott is going to be kind of my win condition for this late game. But also, I can bring in Tentacruel, taking advantage of that Trick Room. I can outspeed, hit it with a big Sludge Wave, which is great. And that actually also baits them to go for a U-turn. I figured they probably don't have much to be able to knock me out there, and it turns out they don't. So, as the U-turn, in comes Toedscruel. Now, the Trick Room is still kind of stirring shit up. It's kind of working against me here. There is one turn of it left, and knowing that they probably go for an Earth Power here, I'm feeling like I can put myself in a great spot by going into the Samurott. The reason for this is because expecting an Earth Power, I can come in nicely, but it turns out to be the Giga Drain, and they just straight up Giga Drain on Liquid Ooze. Tentacruel, buddy is not afraid of a damn thing. And that sucks for me because while the dimensions return to normal, this is the matchup I wanted, but at that range now I'm like, I don't grab a kill here. So I instead decide to hard switch right back into the Tentacruel. If you want to continue to click, Giga Drains, that's fine. I should have gone for a flip turn. I did not, however. That's a misplay on my end. But they go for the Giga Drain. They are not going to be able to do much damage with that, but also they just get hurt by that instead of healed. And then, since no more Trick Room, I can outspeed, go for a Sludge Wave, and truly, all I need here is to get enough chip on this Toedscruel to where Samurott can come in and knock it out. So, here's the situation. They got 3 Mons left. They got the Toedscruel, they have the Cinderace, and then final Mon is going to be a Latios. And now, more than ever, I really know that Samurott has to be my win condition here. And as the timer's slowly starting to tick away, I think I should have it here. So here's the time to try to get it going. Obviously, Avalug's not going to be helping anything here, but I have to go into the Samurott, and it's time to get some Water Otter shenanigans. Now, I do have enough damage on the thing where a Ceaseless Edge should be able to kill, and thank God it does. So no more annoying Toedscruel in my damn way. And also that sets up a little layer of spikes just in case the Cinderace is not heavy-duty boots. So, you know, sprinkle a little spikes over there. And while they can't really go into Latios, it's just going to get destroyed by a Ceaseless Edge. They do go into the Ace here. So Cinderace does get hurt by spikes, but one thing I'm worried about here is a Sucker Punch. I'm like, dude, a Sucker Punch in this spot would be so annoying, and I'll be damned if this Cinderace just ruins my day. So just to scout to see if they're going to click Sucker Punch, I decided to bring in Big Berg though. The main reason for that is just because this thing doesn't provide really any value in the rest of this game, and they end up going for the U-turn instead. So that's what's great, is that, you know, they don't reveal any Sucker Punch. It would have been pretty close in terms of damage, but the U-turn, they're forced to go into the Latios, and that is fine with me, because while Latios kind of has to go for an attack here, they can't do any setup, or else they're in danger by a death via Mountain Gale. They do go for an Aura Sphere. That's going to kill the Avalugg, but now this game is coming right down to it. Not only is there 1 minute left, they've got 2 Mons left, but all I have is going to be the Hisuian Samurott. But luckily for me, I'm Choice Scarf, and I should be able to outspeed both of them. And also, a Ceaseless Edge, if it connects, should knock out the Latios. It does not miss. That's going to be a dead Latios, which is insane. It's also going to lay down another layer of spikes, and I'm like, maybe the Cinderace also just dies to the spikes? I don't remember exactly how much it has left, but hey, the spikes never hurt. So the final Mon, we got a 1v1 situation, Samurott versus Cinderace. It comes in, does live the spikes, and knowing that I'm Choice Scarf, I should be able to outspeed. And as we see no priority come through, the Ceaseless Edge does connect, and that's going to knock out the Cinderace for the dub. So that was a crazy match. Thank God for Choice Scarf Samurott at the end there. It's also funny how I lay down some spikes just for the end of the game and for no reason at all. But that's going to be the end of that game. But while that was a super fun one, this Sylveon set is also extremely fun. And for that reason, we got a little bonus match situation. If there's still anybody out there watching, I love you. You're my favorite. But yeah, my opponent has an interesting looking squad here, and I have some skin ribbons, and we're gonna see if we can get a little good time going. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. So one thing that's kind of cool is the Hisuian dudes are out in full force leads today. They're gonna go ahead and lead off with everybody's favorite wooden ball, the Hisuian Electrode. And we have an interesting matchup versus each other here. I'm thinking they probably just click like a Leaf Storm and just get me down to Sturdy, but instead, they go for Reflect, and it's an interesting matchup because, well, obviously we're super effective against each other, but having Sturdy just gives me the upper hand. Now, a Reflect is not something I expected to see there, and as I set up my Stealth Rock, I'm like, all right, this is fine. I'm still going to click Mountain Gale, because if it connects, it just still does decent damage. It turns out they are going to go for the Energy Ball, and here's what's funny. It doesn't even knock me down to Sturdy. I live it with 4, which is just wild, and as I do connect on a Mountain Gale, that thing is straight up made out of the most fragile wood ever, and that kills it, so down goes the Electrode, which is great. That's a huge fast threat out of the way. I guess worse if it was like Choice Specs or something, but this is now going to allow them a revenge switch in, and in comes the Iron Treads. It is going to be Booster Energy Attack, which is a little frightening, and I have a situation where I'm like, this is fine. I'm going to stay in and pull out the Cussed Out Berry. I probably should not have done this because, check this out, the Earthquake comes through, and it doesn't really do much. I'm like, yeah, Reflect, that kind of screwed me there. And then as they finish me off with a Rapid Spin, I'm thinking, yeah, I should have probably switched there. I also could have potentially gone for something like a Terra Ghost to be able to spin block that, but I didn't want to use my Terra up that early. Moral of the story is, at least, I took care of friggin' Electrode. So now being able to switch into whatever I want. One thing is, I kind of want to force this thing out. Be able to waste its booster energy would be really nice. So as I go Swampert here, I'm thinking they don't have much they can really do. They realize though, with the Reflect up and the boost of energy, they decide to go for the knockoff. Does get rid of my leftovers, which is annoying. Also does do pretty decent damage. But as I set up a bulk up, I was really kind of banking on a swap there. Also, losing my leftovers kind of screws me over in terms of setting this thing up. But now, they just go ahead and click an Earthquake. Not going to do much, but it is going to chip me to range where I should be easy to take care of later. But luckily for me, I can also fire off an Earthquake in return. Completely ruin the schoolyard back here. Just Earthquakes all over the damn place. And that's gonna knock it out through the Reflect. So now the Reflect goes away, which is great. But in comes Zapdos. And I'm like, looking at this matchup, first of all, I'm like, okay, Zapdos shouldn't have much that it can really do to me. So I'm just gonna go for a knockoff. But instead, I'm met with a Hurricane. Buddy just straight up raw dogs a Hurricane in broad daylight. And he's gonna knock me out. So, you know, down goes the Pert, and I'm like, well, shit, all right. Buddy's got balls of steel just clicking hurricanes. That's fine. So, at this point, why not go into the Sylveon, dude? I'm like, you know, I can take special attacks all day long. Plus, if they want to try to hurricane, they're probably gonna miss. So that could put me in a spot where I can get some free curses. But it turns out now, not only did they connect on a Raw Dog Thunder, it also paralyzes me. So I'm like, the hell is going on here? That's wildly unfortunate, but I do get up a curse. I at least do not get fully parried on that turn, so I get something out of it. But I'm like, dude, that sucks because it doesn't do much, but the para really ruins my day. And also a miss would have been just so nice there. So I'm like, you know what? Surely they're going to miss something eventually or swap out here. I'm going to go for another curse. But instead, nope, they just go for a hurricane, again in broad daylight. Just does connect, but at least it puts me in Citrus Berry range. And I do get up my second curse. And now look, my attack and defense are doubled. I'm about as slow as possible. My speed is probably a stat of 2 at this point, but that's fine because we don't need to be fast anyway. I got my setup, so I'm like, okay, now I can go ahead. I'm gonna go for the Protect. I need that to get off so I can use Last Resort. And I mean, it's kind of, luckily I don't get parried there, but they go for the Hurricane. It does, you know, get protected. And I'm like, that shit probably would have missed anyway. There's no way you hit 2 Hurricanes and a Thunder with a para. There's just no shot. So now I'm gonna try to Last Resort. They click the Hurricane and thank God it misses. I'm like, okay, the game is not totally against me. And also I don't get fully paralyzed. So hey, I'll take it. Now the Last Resort also completely melts the Zapdos, which is the most satisfying thing ever to see. That is no easy feat to just OHKO a Zapdos. And we're doing it with a base 65 attack that's sick as hell. So here's the thing, in comes Palisand. And they probably are thinking, yo, Ghost type Palisand can come in, you can't Last Resort me. But what they fail to consider is that I am in fact a Fairy type Last Resort, but also I get paralyzed there. So, you know, the Earth Power doesn't do much, but I get fully parried, which is annoying. They go for another Earth Power, I take it nicely. But this time, no para for me. I connect on a Last Resort, and it's always fun seeing generally normal type attacks hit Ghost type. So that's also going to delete the freaking Palisand, which is so fun. So now we've taken care of a couple mons with the Sylveon. We're kind of schmoving. We are, sadly, though, whittled down and paralyzed. But look, as they go into Talonflame, I've got myself a little last-ditch effort plan here. I want to get as much value out of Sylveon as possible. So what I do is I go for the Terra Steel. If I'm them, I'm clicking Brave Bird all day out here. And with 2 curses, I should be able to live with Brave Bird and then be able to fire off a hard-hitting Last Resort. So it turns out they click Steel Wing, which is fine anyway, because, you know, it does nothing. And I'm like, they get the defense boost, of course. But I get fully paralyzed anyways, and I'm like, damn it. That Thunder Paralyzed really coming back to bite me in the ass. And now I've put all my resources into trying to get one last kill with this Sylveon, which is wasted, because I went for the Terra just to be able to get off that last attack. Now they can finish me with a Flare Blitz. And down goes the Sylveon. But hey, not before we got some very satisfying one-hit KOs, which is not something you see this thing do on the physical side very often, so we call that a dub. And now there's still you know, some game to be played here, and they've got some threats in the back. But luckily for me, I also have some threats in the back. I got the Rubber Ducky. I decide to go Porygon here because I can come in, get a special attack download boost. But then check this out. This freaking Talon Lame over here, it has a Mirror Herb, steals my special attack boost. Which actually doesn't matter, which is just kind of funny though. So I'm gonna try to click the Charge Beam. I'm gonna see if we can't just clean up the game with a little Rubber Ducky action, and just get bath time for these hoes out here. So I go for the Charge Beam. I do connect, but it lives it after the Tailwind, and I get the special attack boost, which is nice. But now I'm like, all right, it's not worth it to freaking miss another Charge Beam. I need to get some guaranteed knockouts here. I go for the Tri Attack. And what's sick is the Flare Blitz doesn't do much. Porygon 2 with an Eviolite is just annoying as hell, but a Tri-Attack is going to be able to knock it out, and that is going to bring him into their last mon, which is going to be Clyitzer, which behind a Tailwind is a little bit scary, but luckily it's not going to last for the remainder of the game, and also +2 Tri-Attack is going to hurt. You hate to be on the receiving end of these triangles, dude. They're going to hurt. So they do end up busting out the Terra. They're going to go for Terra Dragon, which is going to first of all allow it to not be hit super effectively by electric, but also now it's going to boost up a Dragon Pulse, and you know, boosted by Mega Launcher, that's going to do some pretty decent damage, especially if it's choice specs. But considering I am in fact a special defensive Porygon 2, I take it no problem, and as I fire off another Tri-Attack, we do end up knocking it out with a crit. So Porygon comes in and clutches out the little end there for justice for our Sylveon. So that's going to be the end of that one. Thought that was just an interesting game. And look, put some respect on the physical Sylveon. It's probably never supposed to be done, but it can. It can if you're crazy enough. And it turns out that I am. So look, thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate all the support on these videos. I have a whole lot of fun with these. And it's crazy to me that people stick around and watch these long ass videos of me messing around with weird stuff. So again, if you stuck around this far into the video, go ahead and, if you made it this far, this is a long way, go ahead and comment Scribbins for me, and I'll see you later.